Hi, my name is Didier and I'm Senior Vice President, Strategy and Alliance at DAWEX. Thanks for having me. The objective of my presentation today will be to share with you DAWEX's experience as a pioneer and as a leader in the domain of data exchange technology. Data exchange technology allows public and private organizations to set up and operate data ecosystems that are efficient, secure, trustworthy, and compliant with data regulations. I'd like to share information with you about market trends, bring a focus on regulations and the definitions of reference architecture. I will also highlight why organizations engage in data exchange initiative and how solutions like the one offered by DAWEX can help them achieve their goals. And finally, I will share with you some examples of real-life initiatives in various industries and geographies, each of them with a different mission, different goals, and different strategies. But before we deep dive into the topic, let me start with a few words about DAWEX. DAWEX was founded by two entrepreneurs back in 2015, Fabrice Tocco and Laurent Lafaille, both having a long experience already in the data business when they created DAWEX. The mission of the company has always been very clear, bringing technology and expertise to help any type of organizations around the world in defining and implementing the right technology to better circulate, exchange, and share data with the goal of creating value. DAWEX has rapidly built a reputation for its vision and expertise on the topic of data exchange, and the company is multi-awarded. Named a tech pioneer by the World Economic Forum and a contributor to their agenda, speaker at G7 meetings, leading Gaia-X Data Exchange Service Group. I'll come back to that later in my presentation. And who are we working with? Actually, with organizations in many different industry sectors, simply because exchanging and sharing data has become crucial everywhere, resulting in data to flow cross-sector and cross-border. I'll develop this also later with some real-life example. Now, let me share with you some major trends, what we observe in Europe and around the world. Clearly, data exchange is at the heart of all economic stakeholders' agenda. We see a clear acceleration of the number of initiatives launched. In the private sector, they call data marketplaces, data exchanges, data hubs initiatives. In the public sector, governments often qualify their data marketplace initiatives for the common good. And of course, there are also private-public partnerships that engage the corporate world and the public sector together. The reason why these initiatives are launched may have very different goals. In the private sectors, it can be for improving their core business. Let's call it data for business. By accessing external data more easily, more securely, at a lower cost, for optimizing business processes, for creating new products and services, leveraging multiple sources of data. But corporations may also want to generate new revenue streams from distributing the data to others. Let's call it data as a business. Key challenges where data exchange can bring a lot of value in order to tackle them include those that our economy and society face, such as decarbonation and environmental challenges, but also health and societal challenges. Another key trend that shows the growing maturity of the data exchange practice is the fact that regulators have been working over the last years in order to create trust in the data economy. And I will develop this later on by highlighting the new EU data regulations, such as the Data Governance Act and the Data Act. There's also the fact that organizations and associations are building reference architectures and trust frameworks, such as the work done by Gaia-X. And finally, the fact that norms and standards initiatives are launched in order to ensure that everyone is speaking the same language. What is a trusted data transactions? What are the criteria that contribute to creating that trust? The growing maturity of the market is also visible when looking at reports from analysts, think tanks, and leading consulting firms. For example, Gartner, for the first time, is positioning data marketplaces and exchanges in its hype cycle report for data management, rating it as high benefit. Deloitte, in its latest Tech Trends report, is highlighting data marketplace as the key enabler and facilitator of data exchange and data sharing, highlighting the fact that the demand for external data is skyrocketing. It is amazing also to see that at the latest Davos annual meeting, data exchange was at the center of many conversations, as country leaders and the corporate world realize the strategic importance of data and the necessity to share it in order to deliver measurable impact in domains like sustainable agriculture, public health, or the energy transition. Okay, let's look now at some key trends on the regulation front, and in particular on the advancement of the regulation landscape in Europe. Europe has always been at the forefront of data regulations, considering that it's an absolute necessity of regulating the access, exchange, and sharing of data, as it will greatly contribute to the needed trust that the economic stakeholders require for engaging proactively in data exchanges. The European Commission initiated the data regulation process years ago already, focusing on the protection of personal data. And as of today, more than 15 countries, including South Korea, have received the adequacy decisions from the EU, considering that their national legislations provide a level of protection comparable to the GDPR. The focus of the Data Governance Act is to ensure trust in data transactions. Data being here all types of data, and especially non-personal data. Focus is also to ensure trust in the data intermediaries that facilitate the exchange of data between data providers and the data consumers. Those intermediaries are typically the operators of data marketplace or data exchanges. They're actually DAWEX customers. The regulator wants to ensure that those data intermediation services providers are acting as neutral stakeholders. In order to be labeled as data intermediation service providers recognized in the Union, they have to comply with a number of requirements. Among them, never using or processing the data they help exchange for any other purpose than facilitating the exchange of the data. Another requirement is that the access to the marketplace they operate cannot be dependent on buying other products or services proposed by the intermediary. There are other requirements, but these are two which are very important to know. The most recent piece of regulations from the EU is the Data Act, which is not voted yet, but which focuses on ensuring fairness among stakeholders engaging in data transaction. And a big part of the regulation relates to the data collected by connected products, smart products. Connected product manufacturers will have to make the data collected by those smart devices. They will have to make those data available to the user of these devices. If they ask so, and even if they request it, to make it available to third parties. For example, startups that develop innovative services leveraging the data collected by the devices. It doesn't mean that data is made available for free. There might be compensation involved, and parties agree directly between each other on the terms and conditions of the exchange. The requirement specified by the regulation being that it has to be done on a fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory terms. Well, it's worth to know that Data Act has a broader scope with other parts that I'm not developing here for the sake of the time. The Data Governance Act was already adopted this year and will be in application next year. while the Data Act was proposed in February this year and is currently in the discussion and negotiation process, which will eventually lead to the voting. We can expect the legislation of the Data Act to be in application in 2024. Both regulations are extremely important and must be followed carefully by operators of data marketplaces and data exchanges, but also by their participants and, of course, by the providers of data exchange platform technology. Okay, let me say a few words now about Gaia-X. Gaia-X is a European foundation launched in 2020 to promote and develop the digital economy by establishing the next generation of federated data infrastructure. Gaia-X is meant to be an open, transparent, secure, and trusted digital ecosystem to share data and services. And it makes sure that also that users always retain sovereignty over their data. As a Day One member, DAO-X is involved in Gaia-X with multiple responsibility. DAO-X is a member of the European project GXFS, which means Gaia-X Federated Services. DAO-X leads also the Gaia-X Data Exchange Services working group, and it contributes to the technical working group of the Data Space Business Committee, which is covering data space such as energy, aerospace, and smart manufacturing. DAO-X customers are also engaged with Gaia-X. For example, at DataHub, the leading agriculture data ecosystem, and I will speak about them later in my presentation, was selected by Gaia-X to be one of their lighthouse projects. It's interesting to know that the Gaia-X initiative, which is focusing on defining a technical framework, a reference architecture and trust framework, is closely aligning with the regulatory framework that the European Union is building with the Data Governance Act and the Data Act. And it will also facilitate the path to the labelization of stakeholders engaging in trusted data transaction. Gaia-X, as you know, is a European initiative, but it has a global reach and its influence is growing with organizations joining from non-European countries. And in Asia in particular, Republic of Korea was the first non-European country to build a Gaia-X hub, and Gaia-X is also collaborating with the Data Society Alliance in Japan. Okay, let's look now at DAO-X value proposition. DAO-X offering is built around technology solutions that is called Data Exchange Platform Technology, which allows our clients to implement a data exchange environment for distributing, sourcing, commercializing data, and for orchestrating data ecosystems. DAO-X is also offering data exchange advisory services, which are expert services to help organizations define and deliver data exchange strategies. Questions organizations have often relate to and come back to a number of key questions. What are the goals we try to achieve with the data exchange environment? What type of data have the biggest valorization potential, and who might be interested in this data, whether internally or externally of my organization? In other terms, what is my ecosystem, and why those potential users of my data are interested by it? We're talking here about use cases. And then it's about defining the business plan and the roadmap. So DAO-X Advisor help answer all these questions during interactive and collaborative sessions with the clients. But now let's look more closely at the data exchange technology itself and the capabilities it provides. A data exchange platform is a key component of the data value chain. It's the blue box at the center of the picture. It provides key capabilities in order to connect data suppliers and data consumers, helping them find each other. It provides a level of trust they need in order to conduct data transactions. It provides full traceability to the participants as well as to the operator of the data exchange, also contributing to increasing the level of trust required by stakeholders engaged in the transaction. It ensures that data transactions comply with data regulation, and it provides high level of security. Actually, a data exchange platform provides the 4 key pillars of trusted data transaction, namely the technical exchange of the data, the licensing of the data, the business model behind the exchange of data, and the compliance to regulations. Actual exchange of data can be file-based, API-based, can be conducted in a managed mode or in a distributed mode. As you can see, data exchange, the blue box at the center of the picture, is more than just a technical exchange, which makes it somehow complex to address, and this is exactly where data exchange platforms play a critical role to reduce that complexity. Of course, other activities take place before the data can be exchanged, data acquisition from devices, satellites, business application, data preparation, data refinement, and then when it is exchanged with another party, the data product that was acquired will itself be used, will feed dashboards, applications, algorithms, and models to support business use case developed by the acquiring organization that can be of the same industry sectors or very different industry sectors of the data provider. Okay, what I would like to do now is to share with you some summary of the type of data ecosystems, data exchange ecosystems that we observe the market, that our customers implement, and also show why those data exchange environments are strategic for you and for your organizations to achieve certain specific goals. So we'll have on the charts a data exchange platform. That's a technology which is configured and branded for a certain organization, organization A. Then A is the orchestrator, or sometimes can be called the operator of the data exchange platform. And then you have organization B, C, D, E, F, G, which are the participants in the data exchange orchestrated by organization A. These can be data providers, these can be data acquirers, sometimes both. So the first scenario I'd like to share with you is the one where an organization A is operating a data exchange, but for the sole objective, with the sole objective of streamlining the sourcing of data from multiple data providers. This can be insurance company, investment firms, organizations that typically source a lot of data externally. And there are actually more and more companies and industry sectors where you find those situations. Another scenario will be where a data supplier operates a data exchange environment for the sole objective of distributing its own data to other organizations, B, C, D, E, and et cetera, in various industry sectors. These organizations has identified the value potential and the valorization potential of its data and wants to distribute it, but in a controlled way, in a secure environment, complying with rules and regulation. The two scenarios that I've shown until now, you see that there's only one organization that is actually using for its own purpose, either as a data supplier or a data acquirer, an environment that it sets in place. And there is other scenarios which are interesting to see. In this case, organization A is providing data exchange service. As you notice, they are not distributing their own data, they're not sourcing data, they're only providing data exchange services. And they monetize that service so that actually it's sustainable, financially sustainable in the long term. It's a business in itself. And you have multiple data suppliers, multiple data acquirers. They're from different industry sectors, and it depends on the scope and the objective and the mission of that data exchange, which can be specialized. So we'll see that in a minute with some examples, real life examples. Other scenarios can actually combine multiple types that I've shown. So in this case, organization A is at the same time distributing its own data to multiple parties, sourcing data from multiple parties, and also inviting other organizations to join the exchange environment to distribute their own data to the community that is of acquirers that is associated with this data exchange environment. In that case, organization A has a double hat, using the platform for its own goals in terms of acquiring and distributing data and offering the service to others. This is another scenario which is bringing an additional value proposition to the participants. In that case, on top of having an environment where multiple parties can actually exchange data, the starting point was that some organization, in this case A, B, A, C, and D, have created an environment, a closed group into a broader platform so that they can exchange and share data for specific purposes, while at the same time inviting other organizations to join and exchange data as well. So it brings new capabilities into the picture, and it's another version of data ecosystems that we can see on the market. What is important to see also is that eventually all these data exchange environments are going to potentially interconnect and interoperate. They can be each of them can have a very specific purpose and mission and scope, but still there will be some interest in for those data exchange environment to have their participants exchanging data and leveraging the power of the network effect that can happen. This is really what we anticipate as becoming the data economy. Okay. So what I would like to do now is to share some real-life example about data ecosystems, data exchange ecosystems implemented by some of our customers. So the first one I would like to discuss is Japan Data Exchange, JDEX. It's a very interesting initiative that was launched back in 2020 by the global trading organization Kanimatsu. It's a very old organization founded in 1889, which is operating in multiple industry sectors: electronic, food and grain, steel, motor vehicle, aerospace industries. And the president of the company was looking at what is going to be the next highly valuable asset that will be heavily traded in the future. It came to the conclusion that this new category of asset is data. So they decided to go for becoming the leading data marketplace orchestrator in Japan. Another example is Space Data Marketplace, major initiatives supported by the French government and the French National Space Agency, the CNES. It's meant to be a one-stop shop for spatial data and related service. It operates as a consortium today, with DAWEX leading the consortium and a number of key players in the industry being part of it. Thales Alenia Space, Airbus Defence and Space, Dassault System, and a number of data specialists and innovative startups. The objective is to being able to leverage the massive amount of data, whether in volume or revisit, that is being collected by satellites, from the unitary satellite to the latest constellations of small satellites, and being able to make that data easily accessible to a number of use cases in multiple industry sectors. There's a real explosion of services, whether in agriculture with precision agriculture, in the environmental with greenhouse gas emissions tracking, or in digital twins initiative. So many possibilities of using that data, and this initiative is meant to provide an essential building block to facilitate the exchange of such data. The next example I'd like to share is the one that refers to the examples I was mentioning about an organization, in this case AgData Hub, that is not providing data or sourcing data for its own purpose, but provides a service to a community into in this case, into a specific industry, the agriculture industry. The AgData Hub is operating a data exchange based on DAWEX technology, and also consent management platform that is integrated to the data exchange environment. It's a project that already started back in 2019, quite mature today, serving more than 1,000 organizations. It's configured to operate at scale. And interesting enough to note it, it's been chosen by Gaia-X to be one of the lighthouse projects, the one that is dedicated to agriculture sector. In the agriculture industry, there are other initiatives. I'm mentioning this one, which is an ongoing process. DAWEX was selected as one of the preferred vendors, but it's an ongoing process. It's not implemented yet, but in Australia, they are also implementing a similar initiative for building, in this case, an interconnected data highway for Australia's agri-food value chain. The one I would like to focus also is the one that the data exchange environment implemented by Mobivia. Mobivia is a multi-brand vehicle maintenance and equipment retailer. And they've launched a platform called Afterize, built on DAWEX technology. Initially, the company was willing to distribute its own data to their suppliers, but also opening up to other types of acquirers in different industry sectors. A retailer has always a very strategic positioning, as they see the data coming from the suppliers and at the same time the end customer. So they started with that very successfully, and rapidly expanded to invite other organizations to use their data exchange environment and the Afterize platform to distribute their own data to the community. Afterize and Mobivia has been profitable with this new business in less than 1 year, which is a very good achievement from them. Okay, we're getting to the end of my presentation. I hope you found it useful. Of course, if you have any questions you would like to ask, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly on the address that is shown on the screen, and I would be more than happy to continue the conversation. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the event.